I like to stage here and now. Fame is fickle.
I couldn't aspire.
How do you go about writing a life story?
Do I feel happy in life?
Anything higher.
Well, I hope your phone is clean.
Let's see. Let's say I hope I'm finding happiness. All right?
She was tall and she was smooth and dancing, and she was a good talker. She didn't talk like a little kid.
I wanna be loved by you.
What kind of a girl was Norma Jeane?
She was a very shy person. She was a very sweet person.
Everything connects in a person's life, particularly hers, you know.
To make you my own.
She had a sweet voice. She was a tender person.
The true things rarely get into circulation. Usually the false things.
She was...
Welcome back. Now, I personally chose to make this documentary because I am a massive Marilyn Monroe fan, and I have personally loved her. She was like my one and only icon legend that I have loved my entire life. She is, to me, the icon and the poster board of fame, of celebrity, the definition of those words. She is Hollywood. She is old Hollywood. She is classic Hollywood. She is an absolute legend, and she always will be. I think that Marilyn Monroe is the one human being that every single person, no matter who they are, no matter where they live, they know that face. And I think that that is an extreme feat when you have been deceased for, 70 or 80 years or something like that? A long time. But let's get into this. Marilyn Monroe, an enduring symbol of beauty, sensuality, and vulnerability, occupies a unique place in the pantheon of cultural icons. From her humble beginnings as Norma Jeane Mortenson to her meteoric rise to international stardom as Marilyn Monroe, her legacy transcends the boundaries of time and space, leaving an indelible mark on popular culture and the collective imagination. As an actress, Marilyn Monroe captivated audiences with her magnetic screen presence and nuanced performances, effortlessly transitioning between comedic and dramatic roles. Her iconic portrayals of characters such as the blonde bombshell in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes,
we're just two little girls from Little Rock,
and the troubled singer in Some Like It Hot showcased her range and versatility as a performer, earning her critical acclaim and adoration from fans worldwide. Beyond her cinematic achievements, Monroe's image and persona have become synonymous with glamour, beauty, and femininity. Her timeless allure and iconic style, characterized by platinum blonde hair, red lips, and curve-hugging dresses, continue to inspire fashion trends and influence popular culture to this day. Yet Monroe's legacy extends far beyond her status as a Hollywood starlet. She was also a symbol of female empowerment and a trailblazer in an industry dominated by men. Monroe's candid discussions about her struggles with mental health, her advocacy for women's rights, and her unapologetic embrace for sexuality challenged societal norms and paved the way for future generations of women in the entertainment industry. Tragically, Monroe's life was cut short at the age of 36, leaving behind a legacy that continues to captivate and intrigue audiences decades after her passing. Her enigmatic persona, coupled with the circumstances surrounding her death, have spawned countless theories and speculation, adding to the mystique and allure of one of the 20th century's most iconic figures. In the years since her death, Marilyn Monroe's legacy has only grown stronger as new generations discover and embrace her timeless appeal. Whether through films, photographs, or enduring influence on popular culture, Monroe remains an immortal symbol of beauty, resilience, and the enduring power of the human spirit. To understand the environment into which Norma Jeane Mortenson, later known as Marilyn Monroe, was born, it's essential to delve into the socio-economic and cultural context of early 20th century Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles in the early 20th century experienced significant demographic, economic, and cultural shifts that laid the groundwork for the city's transformation into a vibrant metropolis. The post-World War I era saw a surge in population growth as people flocked to Southern California in search of employment opportunities and a better quality of life. The American dream. This influx of migrants, including individuals from various regions of the United States and immigrants from abroad, contributed to the city's diversity and dynamism. Economically, Los Angeles was emerging as a major center of industry and commerce, with sectors such as oil, agriculture, aviation, and entertainment, driving growth and prosperity.
It's a new breed abroad in the land. The woman aerial daredevil. Her motto seemed to be, anything a man can do, I can do better. The dauntless little lady is Mabel Cody. Gladys Ingle used shackled ankles and a hook for her hair-raising transfers from plane to plane. Most amazing of all was 10-year-old Mildred Unger, who got right into the spirit of the Roaring Twenties by doing the Charleston 2,000 feet up. A few years earlier, no woman would think of changing attire. Now, Gladys Ingle did it the hard way, carrying a whole wheel aloft. Imagine transferring planes while hanging onto a heavy wheel. Gladys proceeds with the job. You'd expect a Lady Hercules, but despite the grease stains, she still managed to look frail, feminine, and even coy.
The discovery of oil in the early 20th century fueled an economic boom, attracting investment and facilitating urban development. Additionally, the fertile land surrounding the city supported a thriving agricultural sector, while the burgeoning aviation industry brought innovation and opportunity to the region. Against this backdrop of economic expansion and urbanization, Los Angeles was also experiencing social and cultural changes that reflected broader trends in American society. The rise of mass media, including newspapers, radio, and cinema, played a significant role in shaping public discourse and popular culture. Hollywood, in particular, emerged as the epicenter of the entertainment industry, producing films that captivated audiences both domestically and internationally. However, alongside the city's prosperity, there were also pockets of poverty, inequality, and social unrest. The Great Depression of the 1930s cast a shadow over the nation, plunging many Americans into economic hardship and uncertainty. Los Angeles, like other urban centers, grappled with the effects of the economic downturn, including widespread unemployment, homelessness, and social dislocation.
At the turn of the century, First and Los Angeles streets were legendary. It was one of the toughest hangouts in the West. It became infested with alcoholics, mental illness, and violence. Society deemed these people as scums and dirty pigs. The Union Rescue Mission and the Salvation Army were all located there until they tore it down to build City Hall. During the Depression in the 1930s, many farmers and workers left their families, seeking work in Los Angeles. Many became alcoholics, ending up there. The social services began to evolve into social centers.
It was within this complex and evolving socio-economic landscape that Norma Jeane Mortenson was born.
I went back to the beginning.
Norma Jeane Mortenson was born on June 1st, 1926, the Roaring Twenties. Just like Judy Garland, her early years were characterized by instability and adversity.
Marilyn also had the makings for Cinderella's story. Born Norma Jeane, Marilyn's studio publicist initially crafted a story around her difficult childhood, being shuffled from one unkind foster home to another, to provide a story that made her a more relatable figure to audiences watching.
My mother's first husband was named Baker. Her second husband was Mortenson, but she was long since divorced when I was born. she had, mental disturbances, and she was taken away. I called every woman I would see. I'd say, oh, there's a mama. And if I see a man, I'd say, there's a daddy. One morning I was having a bath, actually, and I referred to the woman as Mama, and she said, I'm not your mother. Don't call me mother anymore. Call me Aunt, the one who comes here with the red hair. She's your mother. To learn that she was my mother was quite a shock. I said, but he's my daddy. She said, no. Oh, I was only boarding there. They adopted the boy that they had. You see, some places I lived, I was taken there at the end of the school term, and they were planning to keep me, but then after the summer they'd had enough. So then I was taken to another place, so that's why there's so many. See, I don't think there was 12, but there were quite a few. 10 counting the orphans home.
Shaped by factors such as the Great Depression, her mother's struggles with mental illness, and the challenges of growing up in a rapidly changing city, Norma Jeane's upbringing reflects the resilience and resourcefulness of many families during this period of economic hardship. Families' living situation was often precarious, with frequent moves and periods of instability. Against this backdrop of adversity, Norma Jeane's birth represented both a source of hope and added responsibility for her mother. As a single mother grappling with mental health issues, Gladys struggled to provide a stable and nurturing environment for her daughter, Norma Jeane. Norma Jeane's early years were marked by frequent separations from her mother and periods of placement in foster care and orphanages, further contributing to her sense of displacement and longing for connection.
I know I went to 6 different grammar schools. That's before you're in the 7th grade. There was one other family I stayed with for a short time, because a woman used to have to deliver things. I don't know, her husband made things, and she was to deliver them to these places. I used to get so car sick driving.
Conclusion, Norma Jeane Mortenson was born into a world of contrasts and contradictions, a city teeming with promise and opportunity, yet plagued with poverty, inequality, and social upheaval. Her early years were shaped by the complexities of her environment, including the economic challenges of the Great Depression, her family struggles, and the cultural influences of rapidly evolving metropolis.
I didn't like the world around me too much because it was kind of grim, but I loved playing. I loved playing with the children in the neighborhood. We could imagine anything and pretend anything.
They used to take me to movies here in Hollywood. Every Saturday and Sunday I was taken there because they worked during the week. They worked very hard, and they didn't want to be bothered with a child around the house, I think. You can't blame them. They were very tired. So I was taken there in the morning and wait till the movie opened. My feet prints are there now, but I would try to, I never could get my feet in there. My feet were always too big. For 10 cents, I would go in, sit in the first row, and I watched all kinds of movies like Cleopatra with Claude Colbert. That I remembered very well. I'd sit there and I'd see it over and over and over and over again. When I was 7 years old, my favorite was Jean Harlow, and the reason why she was my favorite was because she had white hair and I had white hair. And I dreamed of having golden hair, but instead mine was white. So when she had white hair, I felt close to her. And Clark Gable, I'm sure he won't mind if I say it, I used to always think of him as my father. I pretended that he was my father. I never pretended anyone was my mother. I don't know why. But I always pretended he was my father. And then suddenly I was taken to the orphan's home. I was only 9 or 10. And I put my feet down on the sidewalk, and they had to drag me in. I said, I'm not an orphan. And then later, some people said, well, it's better you forget about your mother. I said, but where's my mother? They said, she's dead. I used to sit up in the window and cry because I'd look over and I'd see RKO, and I knew my mother had worked there, and she'd been a cutter there, and all the kids were asleep. Grace used to come to the orphanage and take me out sometimes. She once worked as a film editor, and she had been my mother's best friend. I could put on her lipstick. I was only 9 or 10, and she would take me someplace to have my hair curled, which was unheard of because I had straight hair. Things like that meant a great deal to me. I cleaned that dormitory where I slept. Oh, everything had to be perfect, you know. You swept and then you dusted everything. We had a bed and a chair. We had a locker downstairs. Also the kitchen, you could earn money there. I washed 100 plates, 100 cups, spoons, and forks, and you made 5 cents a month. And they took 1 penny for Sunday school. So you had 1 penny left. You hope you can buy your friend or friends some little thing at Christmas.
These formative experiences would later inform her identity and shape her journey as Marilyn Monroe, a cultural icon whose legacy continues to resonate today. Covered earlier, Norma Jeane Mortenson, later known as Marilyn Monroe, was born on June 1st, 1926, and she was born at the Los Angeles County Hospital in California. Her early life was fraught with adversity, shaped by a combination of family instability, parental absence, and institutional care. Her mother, Gladys Pearl Baker, struggled with mental illness, likely diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenia, which manifested in erratic behavior and an inability to provide consistent care for her daughter, Norma Jeane. Norma Jeane's father remains uncertain. She was reportedly the result of an affair between Gladys and a man identified only as C. Stanley Gifford, or possibly another man named Martin Edward Mortenson. Norma Jeane's infancy was marked by a lack of parental nurturing and familial instability. Her mother was in and out of mental institutions, leaving Norma Jeane in the care of various foster families and relatives. At one point, Gladys placed her daughter in the care of Ida and Wayne Bolander, friends of the family who provided temporary stability. However, this semblance of normalcy was short-lived. In 1933, when Norma Jeane was just 7 years old, her mother's mental health deteriorated even further, and she was deemed unfit to care for her daughter. Consequently, Norma Jeane was placed in the Los Angeles Orphans Home Society, followed by a series of foster homes and orphanages. Throughout her childhood, Norma Jeane experienced a lack of belonging and stability, often feeling abandoned and longing for affection and connection. Despite the challenges she faced, she exhibited early signs of resilience and creativity. Norma Jeane found solace in books and developed a vivid imagination, which would later influence her performances as an actress. In 1935, Gladys regained partial custody of Norma Jeane and attempted to provide for her daughter, but her mental struggles persisted. The instability of their relationship led Norma Jeane to return to foster care intermittently. During these years, she attended various schools, including Emerson Junior High School and Van Nuys High School, where she struggled academically but demonstrated a keen interest in literature and the arts. In 1942, at the age of only 16, Norma Jeane's life took a significant turn when she married James Dougherty, a neighbor she had been dating for several months. The marriage provided her with a sense of stability and security amidst the chaos of her early years. However, this stability was short-lived, as the United States entered World War II and Dougherty enlisted in the Merchant Marine in 1943. Marilyn Monroe's first marriage to James Dougherty was a significant chapter in her life that played a formative role in shaping her personal and professional journey. The union, initiated when Monroe was just 16 years old, offered her a semblance of stability amidst the turbulence of her early years, but ultimately ended in divorce as she embarked on her burgeoning career in show business. It was time for Hollywood. The relationship between Marilyn Monroe and Dougherty began in 1942 when Norma Jeane, as she was known then still, was just a teenager living in Van Nuys, California. Dougherty, a neighbor and acquaintance of the Bolander family with whom Norma Jeane was living at the time, was captivated by her youthful charm and beauty. Why was it so normal for these old men to just go after 16-year-olds at the time? He was several years older than her. Despite their age difference, Dougherty pursued a romantic relationship with Norma Jeane, and then the two quickly became infatuated with each other. Their courtship coincided with a tumultuous period in Norma Jeane's life. Her mother, Gladys Pearl Baker, was grappling with mental illness and was unable to provide for her daughter, with a stable home environment. Norma Jeane, seeking refuge from the instability of her family life, found solace in Doherty's affection and the promise of a more secure future. In January 1942, shortly after her 16th birthday, Norma Jeane and Doherty eloped and were married in a simple ceremony in Los Angeles, California. For Norma Jeane, the marriage represented a means of escape from her troubled home and a pathway to adulthood.
What kind of a girl was Norma Jeane?
She was a very shy person. She was a very sweet person. She had a sweet voice. She was a tender person.
And before she knew it, Marilyn got married to James Doherty only 18 days after her 16th birthday. She was too young to get married, but she was fully mature, physically, and somewhat emotionally, James said.
She was tall and she was smooth and dancing, and she was a good talker. She didn't talk like a little kid.
She was too young really to get married. It wasn't that we were not in love. She was just, I thought 16 years old was too young to get married, but she was fully mature physically. At that time, she just wanted to be a good wife. It was very important to her.
But that's not how Marilyn felt. When the marriage took place, I was just 16. In the state of California, you can marry at 16, but it was arranged when I was 15, Marilyn said. I didn't know anything about marriage, especially the sex part of it. Even Marilyn's friends noticed that Marilyn didn't feel comfortable. She was scared. For my information, she even asked if it were possible for her to never have sex with Jim. Could they just be friends, she wondered? Martin Evans, a close friend of Marilyn, said. However, Marilyn was still a dedicated housewife.
However, their union was soon put to test when Doherty enlisted in the Merchant Marine later that year, following the United States entry into World War II.
This left her living with James's parents, and Marilyn wasn't happy with that decision. Being abandoned by him, too, definitely brought back some feelings of low self-worth, but that started to change when she started finding her purpose.
As Doherty was deployed overseas, Norma Jeane found herself assuming the responsibilities of a young wife during wartime. She took on various jobs to support herself, including working in a radio plane factory as part of the war effort. Despite the challenges of separation and uncertainty, the couple maintained their connection through letters and occasional visits when Doherty was on leave. However, the strains of wartime separation and the realities of their diverging paths began to take a toll on their marriage. Norma Jeane's burgeoning career in modeling and her aspirations to pursue a career in show business conflicted with Doherty's more traditional expectations of a married housewife.
Marilyn had big ambitions for her life, and being a stay-at-home wife wasn't good enough for her, so she took a job making parts in a radio plane factory. That's when her beauty was noticed. A photographer named David Conover was sent to factories to take photos of women working to support the war effort. Obviously, Marilyn caught his attention, and she started working for him as a model in no time. She was then signed by a modeling agency and started becoming acknowledged.
As Norma Jeane's star began to rise, fueled by her growing success in the entertainment industry, the distance between them widened and their relationship faltered because of it.
Before Marilyn had any starring roles, Robert Kahn described her in an article as a blonde apparition in a strapless black cocktail gown, a little breathless as if she were Cinderella just stepped out from a pumpkin coach.
Appearing in advertisements, magazine covers, and pinup calendars, her fresh-faced beauty and alluring presence quickly garnered her attention, earning her a reputation as a rising star in the modeling world. Norma Jeane's success as a model opened doors to new opportunities in the entertainment industry.
Marilyn was even described as the photographer's dream girl for a reason. It all went up from there. After she was noticed as a model, she was called for a screen test at 20th Century Fox and impressed everyone there.
In 1946, she signed her first studio contract with 20th Century Fox, marking the beginning of her transition from modeling to acting. Under her new stage name, Marilyn Monroe, she began to hone her craft through acting classes and studio grooming sessions.
The company was willing to sign her immediately, even though she didn't have any acting experience. But the only way they would sign her was if she wasn't a married woman. To no one's surprise, Marilyn didn't even have to think twice. James obviously didn't like that ultimatum, but Marilyn didn't care. For once, she was putting herself first. And in 1946, she finally asked for a divorce to pursue an acting career. This was definitely one of the best decisions she ever made. But this wasn't the same woman James had married. The naive, young 16-year-old wasn't there anymore. I was 5 when I started wanting to be an actress. I loved to play. I didn't like the world around me because it was kind of grim, but I loved to play house. It was like you could make your own boundaries. It goes beyond the house. You could make your own situations and you could pretend. When I heard that this was acting, I said, that's what I want to be.
Preparing her for her debut on the silver screen, Monroe's early film roles were often small and uncredited, but they provided valuable experience and exposure in the competitive world of Hollywood. Her breakthrough came with a supporting role in the 1947 film Dangerous Years, where she played a waitress. Although her part was minor, Monroe's screen presence and charisma caught the attention of casting directors and audiences alike.
We all know her as Marilyn Monroe, but she was Norma Jeane at first, and everyone knew her as Norma until she started working for 20th Century Fox. One of the executives, Ben Lyon, suggested that she used Marilyn as her stage name. She agreed and then took her grandmother's last name, Monroe. Not only did her name change, but everything was different now. And James noticed that too. The two of them didn't keep in touch after the divorce, but James always followed her career and what she was doing. I never knew Marilyn Monroe, and I don't claim to have any insights into her to this day, James said. I knew and loved Norma Jeane.
Throughout the late 1940s and early 1950s, Monroe continued to build her acting career. In early 1950s,
Confidential magazine and Playboy released their first issue.
One of the first scandals of Marilyn's career started when she was still struggling financially. She was late with her rent payments and needed to pay for her car, so taking some pictures for money sounded good to her. So she posed naked for Tom Kelly in exchange for $50. The shoot had lasted about 2 hours, and Marilyn only did it with the promise that she'd look unrecognizable in the pics. She even signed her name as Mona Monroe, so no one knew it was her. I don't know why, except I may have wanted to protect myself, Marilyn said. I was nervous, embarrassed, even ashamed of what I had done, and I did not want my name to appear on that model release. Even though she was promised secrecy, the photographer sold the pictures and everyone saw them either way, especially after they were posted in Playboy. And Monroe was Playboy's first Sweetheart of the Month. There was a thin line between how those pictures could have affected her career, but in the end, it worked great for her. I admitted it was me who posed for that nude calendar even when the Fox executives became nervous, and believed this would cause the ruination of any films I would appear in, and also the end of my movie career, she said. Of course, they were wrong. The fans, my public, cheered when I admitted it was me, and that calendar and that Playboy first issue publicity helped my career.
Monroe continued to build her acting career, appearing in a series of B-movies and minor roles in major studio productions. While her early films did not showcase her full potential as an actress, they helped to establish her as a recognizable face in Hollywood and laid the groundwork for her future success. And I've got to say, I feel like we've got to give a round of applause to Marilyn, because she did not give up. This lady, worked her way up from the ground. She was not an instant overnight success. Monroe's big break came in 1950 when she starred in the film The Asphalt Jungle, directed by John Huston. Her performance as Angela Finley, the scheming mistress of a corrupt lawyer, earned critical acclaim and marked a turning point in her career.
What's the big idea standing there staring at me, Uncle Lon? I had the market send over some salt mackerel for you. I know how you love it for breakfast.
It's late. Why don't you go to bed? Some sweet kid.
The role showcased Monroe's versatility as an actress and demonstrated her ability to command the screen with her magnetic presence. Following the success of Asphalt Jungle, Monroe's career gained momentum, leading to more significant roles and higher-profile projects. In 1952, she starred in the musical comedy Gentlemen Prefer Blondes alongside Jane Russell, solidifying her status as a bona fide star.
We lived on the wrong side of the tracks.
These gals must have their
Yes, it was a great book. Greater as a Broadway stage hit, with Marilyn Monroe as Lorelei Lee, and even more gorgeous, glittering, and hilarious on the screen.
I just love finding new places to wear diamonds.
The world's most fabulous gold-digging blonde.
Mr. Esmond and I are going to be married.
To each other?
May I kiss your hand?
A kiss on the hand feels very good, but a diamond tiara lasts forever.
The film's success catapulted Monroe to superstardom, establishing her as one of Hollywood's most iconic leading ladies.
Men grow cold, girls grow old. We all lose our charms in the end. Diamonds are a girl's
Throughout the 1950s, Monroe continued to dominate the silver screen, with a string of box office hits including How to Marry a Millionaire, Some Like It Hot, and The 7-Year Itch. Her on-screen persona, characterized by a blend of innocence, sensuality, and vulnerability, captivated audiences and cemented her legacy as a cultural icon. But I wouldn't say that Marilyn was just a workaholic, although she literally catapulted her own career during the 50s. She did have quite the vibrant personal life as well.
Marilyn was one of the most desired women on the planet, but that isn't news to everyone.
Marilyn Monroe's personal life in the 1950s was characterized by a mixture of triumphs and tribulations as she navigated the complexities of fame, relationships, and the pressures of Hollywood stardom. Throughout the decade, Marilyn's romantic relationships garnered significant media attention and became fodder for tabloid speculation, of course. One of the most notable relationships that she had in this period was her marriage to the baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. And if you are a baseball fan, you definitely know that name, but as an American or a North American, you probably just know the name anyways. The couple got married in January 1954. Following a whirlwind romance that captured the public's imagination. Think of like Brangelina or like Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston.
Now, a romance that has thrilled millions. The marriage of beautiful Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio.
It was one of those, but like the original one of those, I would say, or like the most famous original relationship like that.
And there's no surprise in the fact that it attracted a record crowd to the San Francisco court where the ceremony was performed.
Kind of like one of the very first super famous Hollywood couples like that.
Both bride and groom are very bright stars in their own right, and now, after congratulations, they were off on their honeymoon. The girl who starred in How to Marry a Millionaire gave another starring performance in How to Marry a Baseball Hero. Nice work, Marilyn, and the same to you, Joe.
However, their marriage was short-lived and they divorced just 9 months later in October of 1954. Despite their tumultuous relationship, DiMaggio remained a significant figure in Marilyn's life, and the two maintained a friendship until she passed away. In addition to her marriage to Joe DiMaggio, Marilyn's personal life was marked by a series of high-profile romances with other notable figures, including playwright Arthur Miller. Again, if you went to theater school, you probably are very familiar with Arthur Miller. I think it's so weird that Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller were a couple. It's just like, what? Doesn't add up to me. Marilyn Monroe and Miller began dating in the early 1950s, and their relationship blossomed amidst the backdrop of Monroe's rising career and Miller's burgeoning success as a playwright.
Arthur Miller et Marilyn Monroe. Well, Mrs. Miller, do you speak French? Est-ce que vous parlez français?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. My husband does.
Not a word?
Oui.
Oui, oh, that's good. Do you enjoy the ball tonight?
Oh, yes.
Well, you can say oui. That's why I asked the question. Merci. Monsieur Miller, vous parlez français, je crois.
Non. Pas en France.
Pas en France? Pourquoi vous considérez que vous êtes en France ce soir?
Mais certainement.
C'est vrai. Merci Marilyn Monroe. Merci Monsieur Miller.
The couple married in June 1956 in a ceremony attended by many of Hollywood's elite. Their marriage, however, was not without its challenges, as both Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller grappled with personal demons and professional pressures. They divorced in 1961 after a 5-year marriage.
But it's lately been revealed that maybe she wasn't only into men. So were all her 3 marriages just for show? Her close friends have said that she barely even enjoyed her relationships with men, unlike with women. Her whole existence was a search for identity, and her sexual identity was a complete lie. She told me once she had never had an orgasm with a man in her entire life, Jean Negulesco, her director, said. Jim told me privately that she spent most of their early marriage locked in the bathroom. Martin Evans, a friend of James Doherty, said, she had sex books and manuals that were given to her, and none of them made a difference. To be honest, I don't think they had a good sex life ever, despite what Jim later claimed, he said. Even though there are many women that she allegedly had a relationship with, like Joan Crawford, Barbara Stanwyck, Marlene Dietrich, and Elizabeth Taylor, there are some other rumors about Marilyn's sexuality, too. Some people have assumed that maybe after all of her confusion about sexuality, she was just asexual after all. And this page out of her diary is proof of that. Marilyn wrote, "This is a baffling thing when it doesn't happen. I used to wake up in the morning when I was married and wonder if the whole world was crazy, whooping about sex all the time. It was like hearing all the time that stove polish was the greatest invention on earth. Then it dawned on me that people, other women, were different than me. They could feel things I couldn't. And when I started reading books, I ran into the words frigid, rejected, and lesbian. I wondered if I was all three of those things. There were no thoughts of in my head. I didn't want to be kissed, and I didn't dream of being seduced by a duke or a movie star. At the end of the day, Marilyn was married to her work and work only. She loved acting, and maybe her marriages were all part of her act. And James most likely knew that all along. She spent her whole life doing everything possible to build a career, and she managed to become one of the most famous women, even if it came at the price of her own happiness.
Beyond her romantic relationships, Marilyn Monroe's personal life in the 1950s was marked by struggles with mental health and substance abuse. Monroe battled with anxiety, depression, and insomnia throughout her life, seeking solace in therapy and medication. Don't we all, girl? But this is why I feel like I related with Marilyn Monroe's story even when I was so young, is just that she grew up in a life of extreme poverty and chaos and no kind of certainty, and so did I. I grew up in extreme poverty. I was kidnapped when I was 5 years old, and I lived in every single different kind of impoverished lifestyle that you could experience within those 7 years that I was kidnapped. And I feel like Marilyn had a very similar upbringing to me, and both of us are just giant dreamers, and the depression, the anxiety, like, I always felt a sense of home in her story. It just felt very relatable, and I had empathy for her as well. Unfortunately, her struggles with addiction to prescription drugs and alcohol were well documented and often exacerbated by the demands of her career and the pressures of fame. Despite these challenges, Monroe remained a beloved and iconic figure throughout the 50s, captivating audiences with her beauty, talent, and charisma. Her status as a cultural icon only grew during this period as she continued to star in a series of successful films and grace the covers of magazines around the world.
Will be The Sleeping Prince.
This is with Laurence Olivier.
Yes.
And you selected him because he is what? Marvelous?
Yes.
What do you do after that? What's the next one? Do you have anything lined up in the future then? Beyond The Sleeping Prince?
No, not,
Might you do another film with
talk about
Olivier?
now. Pardon?
Might you do another film with Olivier?
Well, there are no plans ahead of that, really. I mean, but they are indefinite, and we're still working on them.
Marilyn, how do you feel about coming back to Hollywood? Is it a happy time for you, or is it a place of
Yes,
sad
it is.
memories?
It's a very happy time. I'm happy to be back.
Glad to
As
be
I
back in
said,
the film
it's
last
my
night.
hometown.
Yes.
Well, you're a happy girl now. When you go to London? Well, Marilyn,
Yes,
I'm changed.
I'm much happier, though. I'm very pleased.
Do you feel, you said you wanted to grow. Do you feel you've grown?
Well, I hardly know how to answer that since they misinterpret that, meaning
I'm not
in inches or something.
I'm not talking about
You feel like the actor studio has added a lot to your career? Possibilities? I think it's been very beneficial to me, very helpful.
How long have you been
for my
going
work
there now? How long have you been going there now?
Well, let's see, not quite a year.
You're going again then when you go back, I
Yes.
Well, Marilyn, speaking of measurements, are they still the same as when you left? Have you gained weight? Have you lost weight? Have you...
I think I'm about the same.
About the same.
Yes.
Nobody has any complaints.
I don't know.
Speak up, boys. You're wearing a high-neck dress now. The last time I saw you wear it. Is this a new Marilyn, a new style?
No, I'm the same person, but it's a different suit.
When are you going to start work on Bus Stop? When do you begin work?
I think the starting date is 15th of March.
15th of March.
I'm not sure of that. It might be before that. I have to report before that.
You're going to the studio
We
on
have
Monday.
wardrobe. Yes, I report Monday. It's my...
You
I am
have to date the
working.
person you want to date.
You know, I'll be working, and I have been and studying everything, so I haven't really had the time. But there'll be time for everything, I'm sure, ahead.
Marilyn, all we know is what we've been reading from the stories from New York about you. Now, I saw a quote that you and Joe DiMaggio are friends at a distance. How great a distance?
Well, we haven't seen each other.
Do you hear from each other? Do you write and talk?
I'd rather not answer.
You'd rather not. All right, fine. Well, now, Grace has gotten herself a prince. Do you think you might find yourself a prince? Or at least a duke. Or you're going to England.
I'm not particular.
You know, you're not particular. Would you like to find yourself? Would you like to find yourself a picture?
Not particularly.
That's a good man. I know. Maybe she doesn't even want to find a man right now. You're so busy. Time for romance while you're out here? Tell me, Marilyn, now do you understand the business aspects of your company? Or do you run it? Does Mr. Green run it? We're all confused on this. We hear so many.
Well, I'm aware of what's going on with the company.
You are. Do you make the decisions? Are you the boss lady?
Oh, no, well, I'm the president. Mr. Green is the vice president, and then there are other members in our company.
Yes.
All the major decisions are referred to you, of course, aren't they?
Marilyn, are you happy to come back and do this picture? Are you pleased with the picture bus stop?
Oh, yes, very much. I'm looking forward to working with Josh Logan and doing the picture, and it's good to be back.
Was he your selection as a director?
20th Century Fox selected him, and I had director approval, and they asked if I would approve of him, and definitely you did.
So you're very happy. You think you're going to make a very good picture?
I hope it will be a good picture.
Do you have any preference for a leading man?
That's up to 20th Century Fox.
Entirely? You have leading man approval?
No.
No?
But I'm sure they have very good judgment.
Tell me, Marilyn, is it true that you submitted a list of directors that you would work with? We only know the rumors we hear, you know.
I would rather say that I have director approval, and that is true.
This you think is important?
Yes, it is. Very important to me.
You were here before?
No, it's not that.
You toured a little in your outlook and your attitude toward life in general?
Gee, I hope so, since it's a year. You've read.
Marilyn's personal life in the 1950s was marked by the highs and lows of fame, romance, and personal struggle. Despite facing challenges in her relationships and battles with mental health and substance abuse, Marilyn remained a symbol of glamour, beauty, and resilience throughout the decade, leaving an indelible mark on popular culture and the collective imagination. But back to Marilyn's career as a movie star, Marilyn's most iconic role came in 1955 with The 7-Year Itch, like I was saying before, and that was directed by Billy Wilder. In the film, she played the iconic character of the girl, a naive model who becomes the object of her neighbor's fantasies. If you're familiar with this movie, you know.
So Richard Dyer refers to Marilyn's archetype as the girl, which he describes succinctly as being defined solely by age, gender, and sexual appeal. He elaborates, she's knitted into the fabric of the film through point-of-view shots located in male characters. Even in the later films, and virtually always in the earlier ones, she is set up as an object of male sexual gaze. Her character in The 7-Year Itch is probably the most representative of this trope because in the movie, Marilyn's character doesn't actually have a name. She's portrayed as this innocently desirable girl who's made the butt of lots of jokes, and the movie even pushes the idea that Marilyn is literally her character because one of the jokes is when the main character, Richard, is wondering who his upstairs neighbor is, and he says sarcastically,
"Maybe it's Marilyn Monroe."
The film's famous scene of Monroe standing over a subway grate, her white dress billowing in the breeze, has become one of the most iconic images in cinematic history.
Betty Friedan notes in The Feminine Mystique that from 1950 to 1960, the interest of men in the details of intercourse paled before the avidity of women, both as depicted in these media and as its audience. Part of the reason is that movies in the 50s were competing with a lot of independent, leisurely, home-based activities like television, reading, and home-based sports. So one of the things that Hollywood tried to do to set movies apart was to experiment with some more provocative material that would not be appropriate to air on television. Of course, the widespread availability of pornography didn't happen until much later, and then the Hays Code was still in effect into the 1960s, but Hollywood was definitely starting to loosen its production code. And Marilyn Monroe, either intentionally or unintentionally, was a pioneer of this Hollywood shift. Sarah Churchwell writes in her book, The Many Lives of Marilyn, part of the reason Marilyn became so identified with the static concept of sexuality is that she began her career as a pinup. A pinup sold a coy, sanitized image of the sexually available woman. Most famously, she modeled nude during one photo session with Tom Kelly in 1948, when she was struggling to make ends meet in Hollywood. She made $50 from the photo, which is known as Golden Dreams, and the negatives were sold to a company making calendars. In March 1952, it became a major news story that Marilyn had posed nude for a calendar company. But at the time, relatively few people actually got a hold of these calendars and saw these photos. So in 1953, Hugh Hefner bought the negatives from the calendar company and used the photos to promote his new issue of his new magazine, Playboy. He bought the negatives for only $500 and he made millions, of course, from Playboy, never having paid Marilyn any cent of the profits.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Marilyn tried to save face at the time, choosing guiltlessness when interrogated by the press. In an interview with Aline Mosby, Monroe said that she'd done the photo because she needed the money, that Kelly's wife was present at the time, and besides, I'm not ashamed of it, I've done nothing wrong. Time magazine wrote of the whole affair, Marilyn believes in doing what comes naturally. Unfortunately, all of this laissez-faire behavior led to this societal belief that Marilyn was inherently a very sexual person, which is a totally fine thing now, but in the 1950s, society was a lot more Puritan, and therefore her sexuality was sensationalized, and it was used as an excuse to ogle at her body and diminish her acting abilities.
Throughout the 1950s, Marilyn Monroe continued to star in a series of successful films, including The Bus Stop in 1956, The Prince and the Showgirl in 1957.
Laurence Olivier, who directed and starred in The Prince and the Showgirl with Marilyn Monroe, said this of Marilyn.
Inside, somewhere or other, she doesn't want to act. She wants to show herself. That's another thing. She is a model by accident or by a villainy of nature, forced to be an actress. That's the answer to her.
So first of all, Marilyn Monroe made The Prince and the Showgirl after she studied method acting with Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio. And for anyone who doesn't know who Lee Strasberg is, he's the father of method acting. He's trained a lot of people like Al Pacino and etc. He's well known in the acting space. And while I don't defend the fact that she struggled memorizing her lines and that she often showed up late, when watching this movie, anyone can see that she does a way better job than Lawrence in terms of comedic acting. So I don't really know what he's talking about.
And Some Like It Hot in 1959. The latter, directed by Billy Wilder, is widely regarded as one of the greatest comedies of all time and earned Marilyn Monroe a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress.
Marilyn is actually a great comedy actress. She's very funny.
Isn't it silly, though?
What is it, astigmatism?
No, just blind as a bat.
Me too.
Oh, really? Then why aren't you wearing glasses?
And I don't think people appreciate this enough because I don't know why comedy is viewed as this lesser, less serious film medium in the film commentary space. But I think it's because it's really hard to make a good comedy because a lot of actors are really bad at comedy because comedy requires you to have really precise and really good, frankly good, line delivery and comedic timing and facial expressions. There's a lot that goes into it that a lot of people don't appreciate. Marilyn's specific brand of comedy was based on wide-eyed literalism, non sequiturs, and misinterpretation. And this is the type of comedy that she had in real life as well. For example, in 1952, quoted in Time magazine, when asked if she had anything on during the nude photo shoot, she said, "I had the radio on." Sarah Churchwell writes, "The literalness became part of her comic persona on screen and off, helping to blur the boundaries between the two." And this blurring was a problem because critics started to think that Marilyn was just playing herself in a lot of these movies. One reviewer said, "Like a flower, Marilyn has always been at her best simply by being." And while Marilyn may not have had the range or may not have had the opportunity to develop a range, I think just casting off her acting ability by saying, "Oh, she's just playing herself," is incredibly reductive. The truth is, Marilyn was acting her whole life. The persona of Marilyn Monroe was something that she crafted herself and something that she had to upkeep during any kind of like public appearance.
Despite her professional success, Marilyn Monroe's personal life was fraught with turmoil and instability. She struggled with anxiety, depression, and substance abuse, like we mentioned before, which impacted her relationships and her career. So it seemed like Marilyn's early career was like strugglesome, and she really had to work her butt off in order to get into Hollywood. But once she got in there, it was just like straight uphill for Marilyn Monroe as a movie star in the 50s. But her later career was characterized by a mixture of professional challenges, personal struggles, and a continued commitment to her craft. Despite facing setbacks and controversies, Marilyn Monroe remained a captivating presence on screen and continued to showcase her talent in a variety of film roles. In the late 1950s and the early 1960s, Marilyn's career experienced both highs and lows. It was like a roller coaster for her. So that was her career in Hollywood, but behind the scenes, there was a lot going on with Marilyn. Behind Marilyn's glamorous facade lies a harrowing tale of abuse, exploitation, and mistreatment that plagued her throughout her entire life. From her tumultuous upbringing to her struggles in Hollywood, Marilyn endured a litany of traumas that shaped her into the icon we know today. As Monroe's star rose in Hollywood, so did the exploitation and mistreatment she faced at the hands of studio executives and powerful men in the industry. From the beginning of her career, Monroe was subjected to demeaning auditions, casting couch encounters, we all know what that means, and pressure to conform to unrealistic beauty standards, like people suggesting that she had her teeth done, get veneers, get plastic surgery, get her chin done. She was told all of these things. One infamous anecdote involves Monroe's experience auditioning for a role at 20th Century Fox. Allegedly, studio head Daryl F. Zanuck requested that Monroe strip naked during her screen test, reducing her to tears and humiliation. This incident underscores the rampant sexism and exploitation prevalent in the film industry during Monroe's era, but honestly, we still hear of exact things like this today. Most recently, I heard of Matthew Lawrence coming out and saying the exact same thing about Marvel films, but that's all alleged. Additionally, Monroe's contracts with studios often gave them complete control over her image, career, and personal life. She was routinely typecast as the dumb blonde and denied opportunities to showcase her talent in more substantial roles. Despite her aspirations for serious acting, Monroe was relegated to roles that exploited her sexuality and perpetuated harmful stereotypes.
Misfits is another movie that really stands out from the Marilyn Monroe film canon, mainly because it is the only movie where the role was written in response to her plea for a new acting challenge. The screenplay was written by her then husband, Arthur Miller.
What makes you so sad? I think you're the saddest girl I ever met.
Marilyn's character in the film is Rosalind, who is currently in Reno to get a quick divorce. She decides to help these two cowboys she meets redecorate one of their homes. There's one scene where she's showing Guido, one of the cowboys, the work she's done for his place, and he opens a closet door that has a bunch of old pinup photos of the real Marilyn Monroe. She promptly closes the door, saying, "Oh, don't look at those, they're nothing." Guido insists on opening the door again, and she again keeps closing the door. When I watch this, I read this as Marilyn trying desperately to move on from this persona she's become famous for, to leave it in the past as she pursues more serious acting roles. I also view it as the real experience of her nude photos being made centerfolds in Playboy without her consent. I think this is probably Marilyn's best role in terms of highlighting her acting capabilities. The subtle facial expressions she does are extremely natural and show the profound sadness that undercuts her character's circumstances. Of course, these movies are not without criticism. Richard Dyer notes that Rosalind still has no biography and is reduced to a divorcee that still hinges on Marilyn's naive sexual persona, and she is still made the object of the male gaze on multiple occasions. And in The Prince and the Showgirl, one of the first sequences is Marilyn's boob falling out of her dress. So even though there is this underlying meta commentary, there's still this insistence on displaying Marilyn's body and having her perform adjacent roles to a character she's already known for.
In her quest for love and acceptance, Marilyn Monroe's personal relationships were fraught with turmoil and emotional abuse. Her marriages to men like Joe DiMaggio and Arthur Miller offered little solace from the chaos of her public and private life. DiMaggio, known for his possessiveness and jealousy, reportedly exerted control over Marilyn Monroe's career and attempted to mold her into his ideal of a demure housewife, and that ain't ever gonna happen. Even more troubling are the allegations of abuse and manipulation by figures within Monroe's inner circle. Blind items and rumors suggest that Monroe was subjected to physical and emotional abuse by certain individuals who exploited her vulnerability for their own gain. These toxic relationships exacerbated Monroe's struggles with mental health and contributed to her sense of isolation and despair. She starred in a series of successful films that we mentioned in the 50s, but despite the success of Some Like It Hot in 1959, Marilyn Monroe's personal struggles with mental health and substance abuse continued to impact her career. She experienced difficulties on set, including frequent absences and clashes with directors and producers. These challenges led to delays and disruptions in filming, earning Marilyn Monroe a reputation for being unreliable and difficult to work with. Very similar to Judy Garland in the Judy Garland doc that I did. In show business, it's still pretty much the same today, but you miss one day and you're all of a sudden unreliable, hard to work with, you're uninsurable. In the early 1960s, Marilyn Monroe's career entered a period of decline for the first time, as she struggled to find roles that showcased her talent and appealed to audiences. She starred in a series of lackluster films, including Let's Make Love in 1960 and The Misfits in 1961, which received mixed reviews from the critics and failed to recapture the success of her earlier work. Despite her professional setbacks, Marilyn remained committed to her craft and continued to pursue opportunities in film and other creative endeavors. In 1962, she signed a contract with 20th Century Fox to star in Something's Got to Give, a romantic comedy co-starring Dean Martin. However, production was plagued by delays and conflicts, and Monroe's erratic behavior on set further exacerbated tensions with the studio.
What? 501. 502.
I start like
382.
Me. I'll start to make good, Jeff. Jeff, watch it. Jeff, speak. Jeff, speak.
Well.
I used to come there. Jeff, speak. Speak.
Stay long? I don't know yet. But if that could be worked out, would you like me to stay?
I would.
You would? Would you like me to?
I don't know where you sleep.
I don't know either yet.
I wouldn't mind.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it's cool here. I was afraid you'd misunderstand about that.
Oh,
would you like it any better if I knew him?
And it's...
with this poor little... Okay, can we start again?
Yeah.
All you can think about is the way I behaved. All you can think of is how I behaved with a poor little man who wouldn't harm a fly.
Yeah, one more. That was good, though, huh?
I mean, how long does it take to tell a woman, my wife's back? It takes me 2 seconds. It's taken... You've had 2 days. Sorry, George, but we can do it. Would you have lunch with me?
I bring my lunch to the store.
I'd be so grateful if you'd take it out. Are you free for lunch?
No, the fact is, inferior footwear is made from them. The crocodiles themselves don't make.
Would you have lunch with me?
I bring my lunch to the store.
My foot's grown. go barefoot for 5 years. Gee.
Eve said you had some questions you wanted to ask me, Nick.
Oh, he has. Ask him. Ask him anything.
Oh, well, let me see. What kind of an island was it?
An ordinary island, wouldn't you say?
Like the rest.
Small island?
Not small. Not large.
Medium.
Oh, trees, yes.
No vines?
Well, oh, yes, vines, too.
Water?
Yes, all around.
That's the nice thing about Stephen. He doesn't talk your ear off.
I suppose you lived in tree houses?
Well...
Huts. We lived in huts.
Separate huts.
Even during the rainy season?
When it rained, we moved on up into the trees.
How was that, gentlemen? Good?
Beautiful.
Good.
Tragically, Monroe's career was cut short when she passed away on August 5th, 1962, at the age of 36. Her death, ruled as a probable self-removal, shocked the world and left a void in the entertainment industry. In the years since her passing, Monroe's legacy has only grown stronger, as new generations continue to discover and appreciate her timeless appeal and iconic status. Marilyn Monroe's late career was marked by professional challenges, personal struggles, and a continued commitment to her craft. Despite facing setbacks and controversies, Monroe remained a captivating presence on screen and left behind a legacy that continues to resonate with audiences worldwide. The demise of Marilyn Monroe, one of Hollywood's most iconic figures, remains shrouded in mystery and speculation. On the night of August 4th, 1962, Marilyn Monroe was found in her Brentwood home in Los Angeles, California. Her death was officially ruled as a probable self-unaliving overdose, though conspiracy theories and questions surrounding the circumstances of her passing have persisted for decades. The events leading up to Marilyn's death reveal a complex tapestry of personal struggles, professional pressures, and emotional turmoil. In the months preceding her passing, Marilyn had experienced a series of setbacks and challenges in her personal and professional life. She was reportedly in the midst of a tumultuous relationship with then-President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert F. Kennedy, which had caused her emotional distress. Additionally, Marilyn Monroe's career was faltering as she struggled to secure roles that showcased her talent and maintained her status as a Hollywood star. Production on her latest film, Something's Got to Give, had been plagued by delays and conflicts, and Monroe's erratic behavior on set had further strained her relationship with the studio. On the evening of August 4th, 1962, Monroe was discovered by her housekeeper, Eunice Murray. Despite efforts to revive her, Monroe was pronounced dead at the scene. The official cause of death was listed as acute barbiturate poisoning, resulting from a probable overdose of prescription drugs. In the aftermath of Monroe's death, speculation and conspiracy theories abounded, fueled by the circumstances surrounding the incident and the involvement of high-profile individuals such as the Kennedys. Some theories suggested that Monroe's death was not a self-removal, rather the result of foul play orchestrated by powerful figures with a vested interest in silencing her.
Dr. Greenson took the secret of Marilyn Monroe's death to his grave. In a taped phone conversation, he told of the terrible burden he had carried.
I can't explain myself or defend myself without revealing things that I don't want to reveal. I feel like I can't, you can't turn around and say, well, I'll tell you this and I won't tell you that. It's a terrible position to have to say I can't talk about it because I can't tell the whole story.
But he did give one tantalizing clue.
Listen, talk to Bobby Kennedy.
Others proposed that Monroe's passing was accidental, the unintended consequence of her struggle with addiction and mental health issues. Despite numerous investigations and inquiries into Monroe's death over the years, no definitive answers have been reached, and the circumstances surrounding her demise remain subject to debate and conjecture. What is clear, however, is that Monroe's passing marked the premature end of a life filled with talent, beauty, and complexity. A loss that continues to reverberate through the annals of Hollywood history. Marilyn Monroe, the quintessential symbol of beauty, glamour, and tragedy, captivated audiences worldwide with her mesmerizing presence on screen. Her untimely death in 1962 left a void in Hollywood, but her legacy endured, inspiring countless individuals to emulate her iconic style, demeanor, and allure. Among those inspired were notable figures like Anna Nicole Smith, Trisha Paytas, and even contemporary celebrities like Kim Kardashian, whose homage to Monroe continues to resonate throughout the decade. So many people considered Anna Nicole Smith the modern-day Marilyn. Anna Nicole Smith, a former Playboy playmate and model, bore an uncanny resemblance to Marilyn Monroe. With her platinum blonde hair, voluptuous figure, and sultry gaze, Anna embodied the essence of Monroe's allure. Throughout her career, Smith paid homage to her idol, often channeling Monroe in photo shoots and public appearances. Like Monroe, Smith grappled with personal struggles and endured public scrutiny, adding a tragic parallel to her connection with the iconic star. Despite her tumultuous life, Smith's devotion to Monroe's image solidified her status as a prominent Marilyn Monroe lookalike, leaving an indelible mark on popular culture. Another Marilyn Monroe lookalike that comes to mind for me specifically is Trisha Paytas, and I'm sure we all know Trisha Paytas, but if you don't, she is a YouTube personality known for her eccentric persona and unapologetic self-expression, and for being canceled 10 million times. Trisha is a self-professed Monroe aficionado. She often pays tribute to the Hollywood icon through her videos and social media posts, from recreating Monroe's iconic looks to discussing Monroe's impact on popular culture. Paytas keeps Monroe's legacy alive in the digital realm, fostering a connection with a younger audience who may never have experienced Monroe's heyday firsthand. Neither did Paytas, but at least she continues to spread it to the new generation. And then there's Kim Kardashian and her Met Gala tribute. The Met Gala, an annual extravaganza celebrating fashion and celebrity, where it's like literally you are hand invited by Anna Wintour, and if not, you are not going. In 2022, Kim Kardashian made headlines for her homage to Marilyn Monroe at the Met Gala, clad in a form-fitting gown that Marilyn Monroe herself wore in 1962 on the red carpet. Kardashian exuded old Hollywood glamour, some say, and others completely hated it. But either way, she channeled Monroe's sensuality and elegance. With her sleek blonde hair, Kardashian captured the essence of Monroe's timeless appeal, cementing her status as a modern-day style icon. Or at least some would say. The style was nothing but fraught with controversy, as the internet claimed she had destroyed the heirloom piece that Marilyn once wore. Her tribute to Monroe underscored the enduring influence of the legendary star, proving that Monroe's legacy continues to inspire and captivate audiences across generations. In the age of TikTok, for example, Marilyn Monroe's timeless allure finds a new audience through a wave of wannabes. With a swipe of red lipstick and a flutter of lashes, these digital divas channel Monroe's iconic style, captivating viewers with their modern twist on old Hollywood glamour. From lip-syncing to Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend to recreating Monroe's signature poses, TikTok Marilyn Monroe wannabes pay homage to the legendary star, proving that her legacy lives on in the palm of our hands. From Anna Nicole Smith to Trisha Paytas to Kim Kardashian, Marilyn Monroe's impact on popular culture remains as potent as ever. Through their emulation of Monroe's iconic style, demeanor, and allure, these individuals keep Monroe's memory alive, ensuring that her legacy endures the generations to come. As Monroe once famously said, "Imperfection is beauty, madness is genius, and it's better to be absolutely ridiculous than absolutely boring." In embracing Monroe's spirit of individuality and glamour, these Marilyn Monroe lookalikes embody the timeless allure of Hollywood's most enduring icon. As we conclude our journey through the life, legacy, and profound impact of Marilyn Monroe, it becomes abundantly clear that her influence transcends the confines of time and space, leaving an indelible mark on the world of entertainment and popular culture. From her humble beginnings as Norma Jeane Mortenson to her transformation into the iconic figure of Marilyn Monroe, her life was a testament to the transformative power of resilience, talent, and self-belief. Despite facing numerous challenges and setbacks, Monroe defied the odds to become one of Hollywood's most enduring legends, a symbol of glamour, beauty, and vulnerability that continues to captivate audiences around the globe. Monroe's legacy extends far beyond her cinematic achievements, encompassing her impact on fashion, art, and social discourse. Her timeless beauty, magnetic screen presence, and candid discussions about mental health and sexuality broke down barriers and challenged societal norms, paving the way for future generations of women. Indeed, Marilyn Monroe's influence can be seen in the myriad of ways she continues to inspire and empower people today. Countless performers, artists, and cultural icons have cited Monroe as a source of inspiration and admiration, modeling their careers after her iconic persona. From Madonna to Lady Gaga, from Beyonce to Rihanna, Monroe's influence can be felt in the work of contemporary artists who channel her spirit of independence, authenticity, and resilience. As we reflect on Monroe's life and legacy, it becomes evident that her impact extends far beyond the silver screen. She was more than just a movie star. She was a symbol of hope, aspiration, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Though she may have left this world too soon, Monroe's legacy lives on in the hearts and minds of those who continue to be inspired by her timeless allure and indomitable spirit. Through her artistry, her vulnerability, and her unapologetic embrace of her flaws, Marilyn Monroe continues to captivate and inspire us, reminding us of the beauty and complexity of the human experience.
It's always with the end that things begin.
Marilyn Monroe continues to be one of the highest earning dead celebrities for years now, which is, of course, a morbid and kind of inappropriate industry to begin with. According to Forbes, last year, the total earnings for the 13 best compensated dead celebrities was $1 billion. The reason is when Marilyn died in 1962, she died with a net worth of $800,000, which is roughly $7.5 million today. But because of her lavish spending and generous donations, when her estate was settled, her net worth was actually $370,000. In her will, she divided her money between her personal secretary, a few of her close friends, her half-sister, and also left a hefty trust for her mother. The important part here is that she gave her acting coach, Lee Strasberg, 75% of her intellectual property rights and 25% to her therapist, Dr. Marianne Criss. When Strasberg passed away in 1982, his share passed on to his second wife, Anna Mizrahi, who I'm not sure ever met Marilyn because she married Lee in 1967. Afterwards, Anna signed deals that allowed Marilyn's name and face to be plastered on all kinds of different products. And then in 2011, she sold her stake to Authentic Brands Group for $20 to $30 million. Also, in 1999, Christie sold some of Marilyn's belongings for $13.5 million. Among these, her driver's license sold for $145,000, and a few photos of her dog, Maff, went for $222,500. Because these money-hungry corporate heads, who virtually have no attachment to the real Marilyn, are the ones making the decisions for where to put Marilyn's face and name, it's no surprise that her face is literally just plastered on every kind of product, from Absolute vodka to Mercedes-Benz to yada yada yada.
Well, it only happens, I think, in moments. Sometimes when I'm working, and I'll be able to fulfill a scene truthfully, and then I think I'm the happiest. Well, I find it very stimulating to keep studying and working.
Marilyn did have a drug abuse problem, but there's conflict over how she obtained the drugs in the first place. In Norma Jeane and Marilyn, she gets them from Ted Lewis. In Blonde, one of her lovers, Cass, introduces her to pills. In The Secret Life of Marilyn Monroe, Johnny Hyde gives her drugs to calm her down on the set of All About Eve. A lot of these fictionalizations or speculations are really disrespectful to me, because Marilyn was a real person, and I feel like they just botch her legacy. But I understand why they do it. Like, I think it's wrong, but I understand why filmmakers and writers feel like they have to fill in these blanks, because there is just so much modern interest in who she is and who she was, and people just want answers to questions. Photographer Richard Avedon, who worked with Marilyn in real life, once said of her, "There was no such person as Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe was an invention of hers, a genius invention that she created like an author creates a character." There's actually quite a lot of testimonials noting the difference between like the real Marilyn and the Marilyn that was viewed by the public. Another photographer, Philippe Halsman, wrote in Life magazine in 1952 about his experience with Marilyn. "I found Marilyn anything but stupid, with amazing frankness and a good sense of humor, and her company stimulating even in a spiritual way. The trait which struck me most was a general benevolence, an absolute absence of envy and jealousy, which in an actress was astonishing." These inconsistencies between persona Marilyn and real Marilyn came even more into light after her death. But unfortunately, when it comes to anyone who dies under uncertain circumstances, whose real life was rendered unknowable by the majority of us, and who was no longer around to verify or deny any testimonials that came out after their death, it is no surprise that her subsequent biographies have relied on a high degree of fictionalization and speculation. Earlier this year, another Marilyn Monroe documentary came out attempting to reframe her narrative as empowering to reflect her cultural tendency to girl bossify everyone and everything. Marilyn's relevance seems to be ever consistent.
To see a woman that is so in charge of her sexuality is extremely empowering.
This woman is so comfortable in her skin. She was rolling the dice with her career in very real terms.
Generally, I think all of this reframing to make Marilyn like the representation of a movement, to push an agenda, is a disservice and disrespectful to who she was, which is a woman in the 1950s dealing with problems of the 1950s.
May we carry forward her spirit of resilience, authenticity, and unbridled passion, knowing that her influence will endure for generations to come. This next segment of the documentary is a rare leaked interview between Marilyn Monroe and George Belmont from 1960.
Oh, that's awfully close.
Awfully close?
Let's see, pull the table over. Frightening thing, you know. This object here.
Well, probably microphone.
Okay. 5 came out in 1 month. And Howard Hughes had just had his aeroplane accident, remember? And he sent for them, and I went to 20th, where Ben Lyon was head of casting. And didn't I tell you that?
No.
Oh, he came out. There was a long waiting on hard benches. We were sitting out. People of all ages and sizes and everything. He came out. He says, "Who is this girl?" So he said, "I look so fresh and young," and I don't know what all. He was very enthusiastic. I mean, he said, you had high hopes for me. Well, they made a technicolor test the following day, which was unusual, but they sort of sneaked it in. All of them got together in the talent department, and they put me under contract, under stock contract, for a year, and then I was dropped. And then I was hired at Columbia. Then when I was hired back after the Asphalt Jungle, to 20th Century Fox, Zanuck said, "I understand you used to be here." I said, "That's right." "Well, things are quite different now." I said, and he said I had a 3-dimensional quality having to do with sex. He says, quite reminiscent of Harlow. And it was interesting since Ben Lyon had been saying that. Oh, yes. Yeah. Because, I wanted my mother's maiden name because I felt that rightfully was my name. I couldn't take my father's name very well.
So I wanted at least something that was related. So I said, I want the name Monroe, which was my mother's maiden name. And the true things rarely get into circulation. It's usually the false things. Yes, that's what she claimed. But as a friend of my husband's says, he was one of our lesser presidents. Truly, I was at the Hollywood Studio Club, although they say that I wasn't. I was. I know. It was me. It happened to. Was I? Was me. Was I. It was all true. I was behind in the rent, and they usually let you get about a week. He asked me to pose nude, and his wife, Natalie Kelly, she'd be in the dressing room, and I'd be getting dressed and changing, so she said to him, probably, she got to do nudes or something. And then sometimes other photographers, Willinger had asked me, well, we won't put his name on it, had asked me, and I would say, I don't do, I'm sorry. And one time, Andre Dienes, I went on an interview, and he said, so you do nudes? I said, no, I don't do nudes, never. So I always went around saying never. And then I got so far behind the rent, 4 weeks, and I was in debt and everything. So I called up and I said, are you sure they won't recognize? He said, I promise. I said, well, if it's at night and you don't have any helpers, to put the lights in. I said, I don't know. I said, I'm shy and I don't want to expose myself to, all the people you have. Then I said, and at night. He said, all right, just Natalie and myself. So we did it. And that's all. He just spread out some red velvet and had me lie down on the red velvet. I thought, they put some kind of lotion on you or something. Nothing, just, it was very simple and drafty. Calendars? No, they've all been stolen. And I wanted to keep one for my grandchildren. But I can't keep them. I don't know who takes them. If I get a copy and I pack it away, it'll be gone. Yes, by the time it was known, I had already done the Asphalt Jungle. I was hired at Fox, and I remember they called on the set, the publicity department, and they said something to the effect, did you pose for a calendar? And I said, yes. Anything wrong? There was great anxiety in their voices. Don't say you did. Say you didn't. So I said, but I did. I signed the release, and I did, and I feel I should say it. So I did say that I did, and they were very unhappy about it. And then the cameraman who was working on the film at that time, he got a hold of one and he asked me if I'd sign it. And so I said, yes, I would. I signed it, and I said, to him, and then his name, and I said, this isn't my best angle. And of course, they got madder, the studio. And they said, but you can't sign those. And I said, but it's me, and they'd rather have these than the other signs. If they're friends, I don't sign for strangers, but they're friends. Or some I said, do you like me better with long hair? Because the hair was down to here, my hair, before I did the Asphalt Jungle. Little by little, I think Fox got used to it.
Ja, du hungrar väl inte bara efter mat?
No, I was really hungry. To to eat. When you live at the Hollywood Studio Club, you get 2 meals a day. You get breakfast and you get dinner. Of course, it doesn't taste very good, but still you eat. I always supported myself. I was never what you'd call, I don't know, how can I say it? No one else ever supported me in my life, in my older life, like. I didn't. I had no family, and I had no place to go just to have a roof over my head. Of course, a lot of people said, well, why didn't you go and get a job in a 10-cent store, something like that? And because I didn't have a high school education, they wouldn't accept me. That's not true. Neither are true. My mother's first husband was named Baker. Her second husband was Mortenson, but she was long since divorced when I was born. So, on my birth certificate, I believe it says profession Baker. So she was just trying to think quickly, I guess, and said Baker. Well, in all my school records, it was Norma Jeane Baker. In fact, I was always told, by the way, when I was very young, that my father was killed in an automobile accident in New York before I was born. When I was very young, I was told that. Yes.
As regards your mother, to you she was just a woman with a red hair.
Actually, she was. You see, when I was very young, I called every woman I would see. I'd say, "Oh, there's a mama." And if I would see a man, I'd say, "There's a daddy," or "Papa," I guess you say in French. So, to learn that she was my mother was quite a shock. It was the woman with the red hair. The people I was staying with, I was about 3, and one morning I was having a bath, actually, and I referred to the woman as Mama, and she said, "I'm not your mother. The one who comes here with the red hair and so forth, she's your mother. Don't call me mother anymore. Call me Aunt so-and-so." But the one I was concerned was her husband. I says, "But he's my daddy." She said, "No. You call him Uncle so-and-so," although they weren't my aunt and uncle. I never lived with my mother. I don't know about the 12 days old. I don't remember, but I know I was very young.
Did you ever see that?
No. I used to ask where my mother was when I thought, well, she's dead somewhere, and then later some people said, well, it's better you forget about your mother. I said, "But where's my mother?" And I said, "Well, it's better you forget about her. She's dead." So I was told that. So whatever, invented, I don't know what they mean by it. It was all kind of vague. I couldn't find out anything for sure. I wasn't 8 because when I was 8, I remember where I had, when I had a birthday at 8 years old, and so I would still be 7, and my mother did buy a home, but I didn't see her very often. It was very, well, the circumstances very unhappy and kind of haphazard. I didn't see her very much. The English couple that I told you, they were the couple. They came to live there in the home, but we only had the home for about, maybe, I don't even think it was 3 months. With the English couple, they used to take me to the Egyptian, where they used to have monkeys in cages outside, and they'd put me there early in the morning, and I'd watch the monkeys. Or else they'd take me to the Grum's Chinese. I tried to fit my foot. My feet prints are there now, but I would try to, but they have these, what do you call those, high vamped.
Ja visst, Gloria Swanson har med pickford.
Yeah, and I never could get my feet in there. My feet were always too big. Every Saturday and Sunday, I was taken there because they worked during the week. They worked very hard, and they didn't want to be bothered with a child around the house, I think. You can't blame them. They were very tired. And so I was taken there in the morning. I'd wait till the movie opened for 10 cents. I would go in, sit in the first row, and I watched all kinds of movies like Cleopatra with Claude Colbert. That I remembered very well. I'd sit there and I'd see it over and over and over and over again till late at night. I was supposed to come out at dark, but of course I didn't know when it was dark, just before dark, because with their conscience they didn't want me to come, at night, but I never knew when it was dark. And besides, it was much nicer there, just seeing the movie over and over and over and over again.
Fick du någonting att äta?
No, it didn't matter. I knew I'd eat when I got home, eat something. Let's see, I don't think there was 12, but there were quite a few. Because I was going to stay with these people from New Orleans, and then suddenly I was taken to the orphan's home. Let's see, so counting the orphan's home. You want me to count all of them? I'll try, let's see. 3. You see, some places I lived, I was taken there at the end of the school term, and they were planning to keep me, but then after the summer they'd had enough, so, or for whatever reason, and then I was taken to another place, so that's why there's so many. I know I went to 6 different grammar schools. That's before you're in the 7th grade. But I'll try to recall. Let's see. I'm to 9 so far. Just a second. 10. But I moved back to a place where I had stayed. So that would make 11 different moves, but 10 counting the orphan's home. 10 different places.
The time.
Oh, it's such a bright, cheerful place.
According to McCall.
I guess it is now. They've made a lot of improvements. I used to sit up in the window and cry because I'd look over and I'd see RKO, and I knew my mother had worked there, and she'd been a cutter there, and all the kids were asleep. I used to sit up in the window and at night, and as I say, when everyone was asleep, and when I wake to the honor bed, you start with 1, well, really the 27th bed, and you had to work your way down and around, and then you could work yourself into the other dormitory, which had fewer beds, but I got there once, but once I was putting on my shoes, and the matron said, "Go downstairs, I'm tying my shoe." She says, "Back to the 27th bed." Well, we lived there. We all had jobs. I had different jobs. I worked for a while. Oh, we'd get up at 6 in the morning, and we did our work before we went to a public school. It's very, well, it's bad to have children from an institution like that go to a public school, because in a public school the kids say, "Oh, they're from the home. They're from the home." Orphans. And, and you feel I always tried to go around as if I were one of the other kids, you know. And we all were ashamed, you know, to have been from the orphan's home. Well, I was very tall and thin. I was taller than all the... I was as tall as I am now. And very, very thin. At 11, things changed. But, and I never grew any taller, but they always said, oh, she's going to be a very tall girl. Oh, in fact, when I was first going, when I first went to the orphanage, and they pulled me in, you know, they took one arm here and they pulled me in. I kept crying, screaming, I'm not an orphan. And then there was a dining room straight ahead, and there were these 100 kids sitting there eating at 5 o'clock. And then a child, you know, you're ashamed to cry in front of other children. So I stopped right away. And then the children filed out and went to the, they were sitting on the porch after dinner. They usually did that on the girls' side. And they all thought I was at least 14. I was so tall. They thought I was going to be in the ad girls. Whoever they were. Well, anything tasted good to me. I always, when I was a child, I ate everything because the families that I lived with, they said they never saw a child who would eat everything. I'd eat anything. Everything. Oh, there was one other family I stayed with for a short time, but it was only for about 3 weeks. I forgot to mention. Makes 11. I liked singing, athletics, English. I hated arithmetic. I never had my mind on it. You know, I was always dreaming out the window. And then, too, another thing people would remark, not only that I would eat everything, but I never complained when I went to bed. I would even say, I think I'll go to bed now. They say, well, that's very unusual, because children, they say, no, I don't want to go to bed. But what I would do would be to go in my room and, except at the orphan's home, it was different. But otherwise, I would go in my room, and if I had seen a movie, I would act out every part. Only I would act out before that happened or after, and I would act out all the parts, the men as well as the women. That's what I'd be doing, you know, standing up on my bed, being taller, even. Just the feeling, what he said and what she said and what he felt and she felt, and usually be sad.
How tall are you, Mara? 5'6"?
5'6", exactly. First time was at the orphanage, and then later in my teens I stuttered, and I was they elected me secretary of the English class. No, secretary of the minutes of the English class, whatever you call it. And then at the minutes of the last meeting, like a oh, it was terrible. When? I don't know. Let's see, I had the orphanage, and after I left, I guess, and then when I was about 13, I took it up again. It just, I don't know how it happened. I just stuttered. Sometimes if I'm very nervous or excited or something, I stutter. In fact, one time they were doing I had a small part in the movie, and the assistant director came in and yelled at me. Oh, he talked awful. and he, and so I, when I got into the scene, instead of my lines, I woo, 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 and the director came up, he was furious, he says, "You don't stutter." I said, "That's what you think." Oh, it's painful, oh God. Well, when I went to live with a woman, her name is Mrs. E. period, Anna Lauer, and I used to do the dishes in the evening and whistling, and she said, "I never heard a child sing so much." So I did it during that period. I liked being with her, staying with her. I always kept in touch with her. I loved her very dearly. And then I adored her. Well, they used to call me the mouse, because I never said anything, and I was quiet most of the time, except with other children. I had imagination. Other children liked to play with me because I could think of things. You know, I'd say, "Now we're going to have a murder, then a divorce, and then they say, "How do you think like that?" "I don't know." So other children, you know, I could be myself with other children, but with grown-ups, I was always very quiet. Went around about doing my work, you know, whatever I had to do. Oh no, okay. I don't want to say too much. Well, Grace arranged it. She and her husband were going to West Virginia, and they were going to put me in a home, or, you know, like I'd been before, or I could marry this boy who was 21 at the time. So I married. Oh no. I was 15 turning 16. When marriage took place, I was just turned 16. In the state of California, you can marry at 16, a girl. But it was arranged when I was 15. No, not at all. Then he was drafted to go into the army, but instead he went to the Merchant Marine. Yes, towards the end of the war, I divorced him. When I divorced him, no, I was 20. I went to Las Vegas to divorce him. If they let you do one, they let you do the other. Well, how does it feel being yourself? That's exactly how I feel. I didn't know. One time a very wonderful director, Kazan, said I had no ambition. That was my problem, my trouble. But I would like very much to be a fine actress, a true actress, that's what I mean by fine, a real actress. I would like to be happy, but who's happy? I think trying to be happy is almost as difficult as trying to be a good actress. You have to work at both of them. Well, I think comedy is harder for me. I mean, it's just harder to act comedy, I think. For me, it seems that way. But I would like a variety of parts. You know, dramatic, sometimes comedy. Not musical too much because I never studied it. I always wanted to, but I never did, and it's very difficult. And after you've finished it, they say, "Oh, you just did it like that," and really all you do is so much.
True. It looks so easy.
It looks easy. It looks like you just walk through it. And I've never studied that, either singing or dancing. Really. It is. It takes its toll. I think an artist artist. I consider myself becoming an artist, so you excuse me, some people will laugh. I don't apologize to you, but to them I apologize. Sometimes, the work is so, you try to be true, and you feel sometimes it's on the verge of a kind of craziness, but it isn't really craziness. It's really getting the truest part of yourself out, and it's very hard, I mean, it's not easy, let's say. And yet it can be very simple at the same time. Being an artist, because sometimes you think, oh, well, all I have to be is true, but sometimes it doesn't come so easily. Well, I always have a secret feeling that I'm really a fake or something, or phony, or you know how people feel about themselves. They have something secret they feel about themselves. I always feel that. I know my teacher says, why do you feel that about yourself? And then he starts to say, but you're a human being. I said, yes, I am. I said, but I feel like I have to be more. He says, no. He says, you start with yourself, Lee Strasberg. I think probably he changed my life more than any other human being that I've met, including everyone. Because when I started to work with him, I would sort of assume something. And he says, what are you doing? I said, well, I have to get into the part. He says, no, but you're a human being, so you start with yourself. I said, but with me? He said, yes, with you. So, in a way, if you can concentrate correctly, I don't mean deep thinking where you're, pounding the skull, but if you can just concentrate simply, that's what I mean about being easy. Anyway, he helped me a great deal. I have a hard time at it. I don't know. I might leave something out, but I won't put anything else in extra. I might leave something out because to my benefit or somebody else's benefit, hurt people or hurt myself sometimes, We all want to protect ourselves also. So I might leave something out, but I don't think I don't think I lie. At least if I would try, it's difficult. But I do want to be wonderful. When I walked out of 20th Century Fox and I went to New York and I stayed for I don't know how many months, 15 months, 13 months, I don't know how many months. And the lawyer, he said, he was telling me about my tax deductions, my I don't know what, and about, the lawyer for 20th Century Fox. I said, I don't know about that. I only know I want to be wonderful. Because you say that to a corporation lawyer, he thinks you're mad. And that's at the bottom of everything, that I do want.
People were making them up. It's not true. There was nobody there that smart.
They never made them up.
And they're often more abashed by them, horrified.
Yeah, like, they ask you questions like, just an example, what do you wear to bed? You wear pajama tops, the bottoms of the pajamas, or the nightgown, or what kind of... So I said, Chanel No. 5, because it's the truth. And yet I don't want to say nude, but it's the truth. Or, I don't know, all of those things come from the truth. If you ever get any of those things you want to ask, what does it mean? I'll tell you where the truth comes from or what it does mean. Because as I say, I leave things out. I don't elaborate sometimes. But it'll be from the truth. Because otherwise it's hard to know where to start if you don't start with the truth.
Okay, here I get up early in the morning. I jump into my clothes, get my belongings together, get in the car, and I have a driver. He brings me to the studio. Then I have somebody waiting here who makes my breakfast. Then they start with the hair and the makeup, and I eat while they're doing my hair. And then they leave it that way while the makeup man, he comes in, he does the makeup. And then they comb out the hair later. And they put on the body makeup and then the clothes. I don't like to rush this process because I find if I rushed, I'm very tired. By the time I have to do a scene, I'm all worn out from rushing through the hair and the makeup and the clothes. So I like to do it leisurely, like I like to dress when I go out in the evening. I love to dress leisurely. I like to soak in the tub, then leisurely. I like music. I think that we're rushing too much nowadays. That's why people get nervous. Well, I don't think I'm late all the time, but maybe it is because I can't go as fast as other people. You know, people that get in automobiles, they run into each other because they never stop. They're going like that. And I don't think that mankind, it's intended for them to go like that. They're not supposed to be like machines. And I think you get more done the other way, by doing it more sensibly, more leisurely. Mr. Cukor on this film has been very wonderful to me in as much as he lets me come in an hour later than I would usually come in. So it helps because I'm fresher at the end of the day. It helps. He says he does it for my work, and I think it's so. I think actors in movies work too long hours. The hours are too long. Always, nearly always. Sometimes I feel a doom set over me. Just as I'm walking on the stage, it's just like a doom sets on me. I don't know why, but I get over it sometimes. Sometimes it lasts all day. I want to do my best, the best that I can do in that moment. When the camera starts until it stops. That moment I want to be perfect. As perfect as I can make it. I used to go to movies on Saturday night when, for instance, when I worked in a factory, and that was my only time that I could enjoy myself, really, that I really relaxed and enjoyed. And this is on tape. We're trying to think. Excuse us. And so I used to be very disappointed if I went to a movie, because I waited all week to go to the movie. And I worked hard for the money that I spent. And if I went to a movie and it was a bad movie, or I thought people didn't do their best, kind of did it sloppy or something, I really was mad, angry when I left, because then I didn't have anything to go on for a whole week. I'd wait for another week. So I always feel that I work for the ones who work hard, and they go to the box office and put down their money and they want to be entertained, or I always feel I do it for them. But I do care because I know how the others feel. They've worked hard all week. And my favorite stars then? Oh, I liked anybody who was good. Sometimes they'd be good, sometimes they wouldn't, depends. Oh, well, that was when I was very small. That's when I was 7 years old. When I was 7 years old, my favorite was Jean Harlow. And the reason why she was my favorite, because she had white hair, and I had white hair. And they used to call me towhead. I don't know how you'd say it in French, but it was white hair instead. And I dreamed of having golden hair, but instead mine was white. And so when she had white hair, I felt sort of close to her, because she had white hair, I had white hair. And Clark Gable, I'm sure he won't mind if I say it, because in a Freudian sense, it's supposed to be very good. I used to always think of him as my father. I pretended that he was my father. I never pretended anyone was my mother. I don't know why. But I always pretended he was my father. I was just 7 years old, and he was a very young man, and I thought that's how I wanted my father to look.
Love? I think it's a rare thing, and not to be discounted at all, not to be pushed away in a corner. I find that's why I like poetry, I think, also. They don't discount it. They take it for its worth, its value. It's one of the most important things that ever happens to us. I think the most important thing. I think love and work are the only things that really happen to us. And everything else is just, doesn't really matter. And I think one without the other isn't so good. I think they both need, I don't know. I'm only 34, I have a few years to go yet. But I think I think it's the most important thing. Because even work is a kind of love. It's something that you love to do. Even workers, factory workers, I used to take a pride in the way that I would do it. Even though I did it very fast, I would take a pride in the fact that I would do it exactly perfect as I could, you know. So I think that, well, I guess I'm a little impetuous, Paula says. Exclusive. I think I am, because I have very few friends, but not to be exclusive. It's just that I like people, but for friends, I like few people. A few people, I guess you call it.
Jody Maggio.
Well, I met him the year he retired. He had already retired. And I saw him for about a year and a half, 2 years, and we married in San Francisco. And his background, his family, they were immigrants, and they had a very difficult time. And when he was young, he had a very difficult time. The other thing, he was a wonderful athlete, and he could hit a baseball. Anything thrown in his direction, he could hit. So he understood some things about me, and I understood some things about him, and we based our marriage on it. And I say some things. Well, I don't want to say that. I just say we understood some things about each other. He has a very sensitive nature in many respects. You know, one thinks of an athlete as being, I don't know, not having that, but they do. Our marriage wasn't a happy one. It ended in 9 months. Unfortunately, I don't know what else to say. Well, it only happens, I think, in moments. sometimes when I'm working, and I'll be able to fulfill a scene truthfully, and then I think I'm the happiest. Well, I find it very stimulating to keep studying and working. Yes, it was. He came with Elia Kazan on the set of a picture called Young as You Feel. And as he describes it, I was crying when he met me. A friend of mine had died, and anyway, Kazan came over and he said he was very sorry. And I burst into tears. We had Arthur with him, and so even though I was in tears, he introduced me to Arthur. So I'd forgotten, but he said I was crying when I, in tears, weeping, when he met me. Then I didn't see him for about 4 years. I used to think that maybe he might see me in a movie. For instance, there'd be 2 pictures playing. They used to have it. I thought, and I might be in the other movie. He'd see me, and I'd want to do my best. Because he said that he thought that I should act on the stage. And people who were around heard him say it. They laughed. But he said, no, I'm very serious.
At that time, I mean.
That was in 1950.
In 1950.
Does one ever know that? I mean, I know certain qualities that I remembered at the time, but I don't know exactly what. I think that's mysterious. No, I can't say he gave me a feeling of security. There wasn't any reason for him to, really, except he treated me as a human being, and he was a very sensitive human being, and treated me as a sensitive person also. I don't know how to describe it.
No, of course it's very difficult.
It's always with the end that things begin.
I feel sometimes it's on the verge of a kind of craziness, but it isn't really.
We'll try to tell a story. It would be a dark story, even if we could change the ending.
Well, I always have a secret feeling that I'm really a fake or something, or phony, or you know how people feel about themselves.
To get to people with information about the night Marilyn died, it was difficult.
Let it be.
I can't say anything, and I knew it all.
I did what you always have to do if you meet a dead end.
This last segment of the documentary is alleged to be the very last ever interview with Marilyn Monroe before she passed.
Fame? I just want caviar. It's good to have caviar, but we had it every damn day. You know? Too much caviar. And yet, it stirs up envy, fame. Who does she think she is, Marilyn Monroe?
I arrived at Marilyn's house in Brentwood, which is just outside of L.A. I pressed the doorbell. My heart was pounding because I absolutely had no idea what to expect. When her housekeeper opened the door, I was amazed. In front of me was a virtually empty living room. There was nothing in it but a couple of chairs. I put the tape recorder on the floor and was kneeling down trying to get it to work. Suddenly, in front of me, I saw yellow slacks, and a voice said, "Is there anything I can do to help?" And so that's the way I met Marilyn Monroe, on my knees. She looked great. She'd had her hair and makeup done, but she was clearly troubled. And I saw a roller coaster of moods, intensity, a lot of anger and sadness, as we discussed how her life had been changed by fame.
You know, since this article is going to be on fame, I like to state here and now, fame is fickle. And I know it. It has its compensations. It does. But it also has its drawbacks. And I've experienced both.
Very nice. Some girl.
What has Marilyn Monroe got that a million other women have and prefer not to show?
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Fame and happiness, it seems to me, is certainly temporary and a partial happiness. Or a waif. And I'm not calling myself an orphan, but I was brought up a waif. You see, I was brought up, I think, differently than the average American child. Because, no, but the average American child sort of, you know, like to be happy, you know. To be happy, that's it. Gee, happiness wasn't anything I ever took for granted. I loved to play. I didn't like the world around me too much because it was kind of grim. I just felt like I was on the outside of the world, and suddenly everything opened up. I thought, gee, what happened? You know, the world became friendly. It opened up to me. I didn't realize the value of a sweatshirt in those days. I mean, I sort of was beginning to catch on, but I didn't quite get it. Because I couldn't really afford sweaters. We are all born sexual creatures, thank God. It's a pity so many people despise and crush this natural gift. Tom Kelly, you can find him around. He's still around town. You know, when he first said, you know, pose nude. But then I thought, if I'm going to be a symbol of something, I'd rather have it sex than some other thing they got symbols of. See, that's the trouble. A sex symbol becomes a thing. Well, I just hate to be a thing.
She had that wild laugh, sort of a trademark, but in the interview, it seemed to come out at odd moments, out of place. Marilyn gave her fans the credit for her fame. She felt she never had respect from the Hollywood studios, and only her adoring fans really understood her, and they had made her a star. Talking about them were the only really happy moments of the whole interview.
If I am a star, the people made me a star. There was no studio and no person. But the people did. There was a reaction that came in to the studio. I mean, Steinmeier, you can't imagine. And they say, you know, you're the only star that they've got, or you're the star, you know, and they look at me as if I was nuts.
Marilyn, on behalf of Look magazine, I'd like to present to you the Look Achievement Award as the most outstanding feminine newcomer of 1952. Congratulations.
Thank you, Lauren. And my thanks to Look magazine.
Gee, I never felt I had an effect on people until I guess I was in Korea. I don't think until then, really, because studios that I've worked with always said, remember one thing, you're no star. Sometimes people want to see if you're real. They kind of look to you, towards you, for some kind of something that's, I guess, away from their everyday life. I guess you call that entertainment, huh?
And we all lose ourselves in the end.
life. But get that ice or else no dice. Keep your guy when stocks are high. But beware when they start to descend. Then that those louses go back to their spouses. Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
People I like, but something scares me, like mobs scare me. But people, that's something you can trust. Coming out of my apartment in New York, 57th Street, when I come out of the door, they say, Marilyn, hi, how do you feel this morning? To me, it's an honor. At first they whistle because, they think, oh, it's a girl, she's got blonde hair, she's not out of shape. And then they do, my God, it's Marilyn Monroe. And I think that sexuality is only attractive when it's natural and spontaneous. This is where a lot of them miss the boat. You know what I mean?
Marilyn was ambivalent about being a sex symbol and ambivalent about the press who had reinforced that image. They had delivered the audience to her, but she still didn't trust them. That's why she wanted my questions in advance and clearance of the final story. Of course, she loved the attention of the press, but she hated being mobbed by reporters and photographers every time she came out in public.
I'm just tugging on you all the time.
They are, and I don't want to sound paranoid, but they are. They don't like sort of a chunk, somehow. I mean, they kind of take, like, pieces out of you. And I don't think that they realize it.
Where are you going from here?
We got a car.
Miss Monroe is now getting a moored car. Apparently nobody has been seriously hurt or maimed.
Raise it upstairs.
Or is
really wonderful.
suffering as a result of this melee.
They're kind of grabbing pieces out of you. And gee, you do want to stay intact. Intact, on 2 feet. They want to know, like, what is it like? Sometimes it's nearly impossible. And there is a need for aloneness, which I don't think that most people realize for a creative person or an actress. It's almost having certain kind of secrets for yourself that you'll let the whole world in on. But there has to be those moments of privacy. I used to laugh so loud and so gay. I would ask the boys, I said, can I ride your bicycle now? And they said, sure. And then I'd go zooming, but I started to laugh in the wind, riding down the block, laughing, But I loved the wind because it felt like it caressed me.
Marilyn only got a couple of phone calls during the entire interview, and once when the phone rang, Marilyn told her housekeeper, if it's an Italian, tell him I'm not here. I believed she was referring to Joe DiMaggio. Marilyn had 3 marriages, but all were failures. She didn't even want me to mention her first marriage at age 16 to a sailor.
Well, I have to explain to you, I was never used to being happy. So that wasn't something I was sort of counting on. I think I counted on it, yes, in marriage. When I was very young, and I used to love to play house. And you could pretend, you could say, hey, what about if you were such and such, if I were such and such, and they'd say, oh yeah. And it was like, you could make your own boundaries.
Sherry didn't come along with you, huh?
No.
Did he see you off in Hollywood last night?
Oh, yes.
Do you expect to return with him to the World Series?
I wish I could, but I'll be finishing this picture when
the World Series,
yes. I've never seen the World Series, and I would love to, but we just can't seem to fit the schedule together.
Miss Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio are presently having domestic difficulties. All I can say as her attorney is that this is what we would say with the conflict of careers.
And I used to get the feeling, and sometimes I still get it. I think, gee, sometimes I think I'm fooling somebody. I don't know who. Maybe myself. Maybe others.
Mr. Miller, why did you file an application for a passport?
I wanted to go to England.
For what reason?
You guess.
We'd like you to
I wanted to be with the woman who is going to be my wife.
You mean Marilyn Monroe?
That's correct.
When are you planning to have some children? Well, I'm not married yet, dear.
Come on now. Cheek to cheek. Got it? No, we didn't. Come on now.
Anyway, you see why I couldn't have just been a housewife. I've had too many fantasies. I have feelings sometimes. Or some days when there are certain things that, I think, if only I were a cleaning woman. On the way to the studio, see somebody cleaning or, I think, that's what I'd like to be. I guess I'll settle for what I am. Say, would you like a drink?
No.
No? Oh, come on, have a little.
Late in the interview, Marilyn began drinking champagne, and the more she drank, the more angry and defensive she became. She spilled out all the hurt over her treatment by Hollywood during 15 years in the movies. To me, she was like a record stuck in a groove. She felt they had never treated her like a star. Her anger really flashed when I asked her, very innocently, I thought, how she cranked herself up for her acting role.
The business of you cranking yourself up to appear before the camera is part of what you're doing.
I don't crank anything. I'm not a Model T. I don't crank. I don't know, but I think it's kind of disrespectful to kind of refer to it that way. We are not machines, no matter how much they want to say we are not. I want to be an artist, an actress with integrity. When I'm older, then I'll play other kinds of parts. My teacher, Lee Strasberg, always said to me, I said, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm a little nervous. He says, when you're not, give up. Because nervousness indicates sensitivity. I guess I think we just go out there, that's all we do. You go out there and do it. But it's a real struggle. I really have to struggle. You've read there was some actor that once said about me that kissing me was like kissing Hitler.
Oh, my God.
Well, I think that's, his problem.
Gee.
And if I really have to do intimate love scenes with an individual who really has these kind of feelings towards me, then my fantasy can come into play. In other words, out with him, in with somebody else. There's somebody else there, not him. He was never there. I think, in fact, the public would be quite disillusioned the way the industry treats its stars. I remember when I got the part in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Jane Russell, she was the brunette in it, and I was the blonde. She got $200,000 for it, and I got my $500 a week, but to me that was considerable. But the only thing was I couldn't get a dressing room. And I said, I really got to this kind of a level. I said to them, look, after all, I am the blonde, and it is Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Because they always kept saying, remember, you're not a star. I said, well, whatever I am, I'm the blonde. I mean, it got to that. But, I start to sound paranoid or something. I don't think I am. I think that every weakness is exaggerated. A lot of people have real quirky problems. They wouldn't dare have anyone know. But one of my problems is that I'm late. Well, for instance, I guess they think that why I'm late, it has to do with some kind of arrogance. And I think it's the opposite of arrogance, just as a starter. Let's start with that. It's the opposite. I mean, the things they send out about me from this corporation over here, we'll leave nameless. And I've never lost sight of the fact that I am not at a studio at any time for discipline or to be disciplined. If you have a cold, how dare you have a cold? I mean, the executives can get colds and stay home for, forever and phone it in. But how dare you get a cold?
Marilyn refused to acknowledge any responsibility for missing so many days on the set at Fox. She claimed she was sick, but the studio just didn't believe her. And in the midst of it all, Marilyn took off 2 more days to travel from Hollywood to New York to sing Happy Birthday to President Kennedy, whom she spoke of rather coyly, I thought, as a complete stranger.
I was honored when they asked me to appear at Madison Square Garden.
In the history of show business, perhaps there has been no one female who meant so much, who has done more.
It's like a hush, in the whole place. Which, I thought, oh my God, if I'd been wearing a slip, I would have thought it was showing or something.
The late Marilyn Monroe.
There was kind of this hush squawking. I thought, oh my God, what if no sound comes out? And then you think, my God, I'll sing this song if it's the last thing I'll ever do.
I can now retire from politics after having had Happy Birthday sung to me in such a sweet, wholesome way.
Did you meet Kennedy?
Afterwards, they had some kind of a reception because I never did see the food. But maybe that was in another part of the play. And I had met the Attorney General briefly. So it was good to see a smiling, friendly face.
Less than 3 weeks later, Marilyn was fired from Something's Gotta Give. To Fox, Madison Square Garden was the last straw. She had been absent 21 of 33 shooting days, and to them, she was obviously unstable and falling apart. Marilyn was exhausted. She had drunk a full bottle of champagne, and she had barely eaten anything. And she continued to paint herself as the victim.
Fame is also a burden. An industry, I don't think, should behave like, let's say, a mother whose child maybe has, let's just say the worst is run out in front of a car. So what do they do to the child? But instead of clasping the child to them, they start beating up on the child. They feel that it gives them some kind of a privilege to walk up to you and say anything to you. So at least it's something that, let's say, I experienced. So it's not just that, okay, fame will go by. So long, I've had you, fame. If it goes by, I told you it was fickle. I don't know if this is going to come off on tape, but I know what I mean.
It's just great.
Well, I hope we got something here. But please don't make these look like a joke.
Those were the last words she said to me. I said goodbye, and as I walked down the driveway, I looked back for a second. Marilyn was framed in the door, and she waved and called, "Hey, thanks." I went back to New York and wrote the piece, and it appeared in Life magazine in the August 3rd issue. On August 5th, the phone rang. It was a reporter telling me that Marilyn was dead. I was dumbfounded.
Well, I just want to thank all of you guys for sticking around if you stuck around for this entire video. Marilyn Monroe's life was an absolute legacy, and she still will always remain to be a legacy. But if you enjoyed this video, please let me know, why do you love Marilyn Monroe so much, huh? Because I know you do. Anyways, if you'd like to check out another documentary of mine, you can check one out over here. And of course, a special thank you to my patrons, Martina, Robin, Gina, and Laura, for supporting the channel. And I guess I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.